This hour of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by my good friends at Advantage Gold. Advantage Gold is a 5-star rated gold company with one-of-a-kind customer service. And when it comes to gold and precious metals, Advantage Gold is the only company I'll work with. Call Advantage Gold today and make sure you let them know that Mark Levin sent you. And now, let's begin.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. I want to thank all the guys who took up the microphone in my absence. And I want to thank all of you for sticking with us. I told you I was going on a mission. Now, many of you had figured out it's probably Israel. But I don't forecast exactly what I'm doing for obvious reasons. I'm not liked everywhere. And, Mr. Producer, there's some people in the Middle East who might not like me either. And so, particularly when I have some of the family with me, I can't pinpoint and announce exactly what I'm doing. And we had a terrific man protecting us. He had an automatic weapon. We'll just say his name was Gabriel, and he was terrific. And I'll get into this a little bit with you, because I did it to report to you. It's one thing to talk about what's going on in the Middle East. It's quite another to experience it. We experienced it a little bit more than I expected we would, but we did, and so be it. And what I realized is how much of the reporting is BS when things are taking place in the Middle East. Complete BS. Even from some people who are reporting from there. Most of them aren't, but some are. Now, I had some meetings over there. I'm not going to get into them in specifics. With some very significant people. Learned a great deal. And this is why I come behind this microphone with knowledge on these subjects. Not just shoot from the hip. And by the way, I want to also discuss tonight this impeachment fraud that took place. I want to also discuss tonight the Trump case, the Speaker of the House, and the funding for various allies, as well as the hearings that took place on anti-Semitism. We have a lot to cover. I just got back, obviously. Literally got back about 5 hours ago. And so, first of all, the people of Israel don't all think the same way. Don't all practice their faith the same way. Some don't practice their faith at all. There are also Arab Israelis and other Israelis. They're Christians who live in Israel. It is a majority Jewish state, but it is a diverse state. And you will see many minorities there. You will see a lot of Ethiopians, because Israel some time ago had a refugee lift from Ethiopia to Israel because the Ethiopian Jews were being, as you can imagine, murdered and attacked. And so it is quite a melting pot in that sense. And when you look at the IDF is filled with people of all backgrounds, all colors, all denominations. And that is true. One of the things I knew, but certainly was underscored when we were there, is the Israeli people are warriors. By that, excuse me, by that I mean they will defend their country. Whether Biden wants them to defend it or not, whether Blinken wants them to defend it or not, regardless of what they say on CNN and MSNBC and the pages of the New York Times, it doesn't matter. They have nowhere to go. This is it. And they also know that this is their homeland. Very few people around the world can say that they can literally identify their history going back over 4,000 years. Well, the Jews can. The Palestinians can't because they didn't even exist 200 years ago or 150 years ago. It's a whole nomenclature thing. They do know what's going on in the United States. They're quite concerned about the massive spread of anti-Semitism in our country. They're quite concerned about the lack of support or the support and the no support that's coming out of certain elements within the United States. They see what you see. They do listen to this station. I should say this program in Israel via the podcast and direct streaming. And of course, they have Fox, among other stations in Israel. It is a vibrant country, but it's also a country that is different. What do I mean by that? We stayed in 2 different hotels, and you will have signs in different parts of the hotel on every floor that has the word shelter in bold and an arrow. So you're always mindful that you may have to run to a shelter because there might be an attack. This is constant in that country. It is constant. I want you to think about how that would work if you or we were under constant threat and missile sirens going off. And how that would be for your kids and your grandkids. They're not firing missiles willy-nilly. Whistles are willy-nilly being fired at them. Also, you will see soldiers in the streets. It's not an overbearing presence, but very young people with rifles on their shoulders and so forth and pistols on their hips, walking certain of the streets, whether it's in the old city of Jerusalem or other parts of the country. And they are starting to loosen their very strict gun rules, so more and more citizens can obviously carry guns. I don't think they're loose enough from my perspective, but there you go. Many of the people there speak beautiful English. It is a completely westernized, open society. Unlike what surrounds them, which are throwbacks to the 9th century, even the 7th century, which are terrorist organizations and regimes even the Arabs want nothing to do with. And so you have this conflict between a Western civilization, a democracy, people who believe in life and believe in freedom versus a throwback ideology in one form or another that could care less about freedom, the individual, or democracy, and have a centralized ideology. And if you don't comply, then they kill you, or they oppose you, or they do something to you because they don't let it sit. And that includes Muslims who don't believe in terrorism. They are targeted in the Middle East. I'm watching this guy, McKenzie, who was one of the architects of the horrific surrender in Afghanistan. He was apparently head of the CENTCOM at one point. And these guys who are failures as generals, they're brought on TV to give counsel and advice and input on what Israel should do, or Ukraine should do, or Taiwan should do. It's really baffling to me. McKenzie and Milley, even though they pointed out that they didn't agree with what Biden told them to do and Blinken told them to do, should be hanging their heads in shame for the rest of their lives. They should have resigned in opposition to what was taking place. We've had generals who have done that. Singlab is a perfect example. And I wrote some notes here. He was on Fox on the Cavuto show with respect to Israel. They should take the win. Now that's Biden. Take what win? Folks, 300 missiles were shot at their cities. My wife, Julie, my mother-in-law, my stepson, and I experienced it. Now, they were shot out of the sky, but they were shot at their country. Nobody says Iran should play defense. Those were offensive missile firings at the state of Israel. Now, I'm pretty sick and tired of people telling them what to do, but we wouldn't tolerate that for 2 seconds, and you wouldn't tolerate it if our government tolerated it. And some general, retired, who's a complete loser, goes on TV, take the win. For his criticism of Biden in Afghanistan, he's repeating Biden right now. He suggests it's hard for Israel to take the victory, to accept victory. Accept victory? Those missile silos still exist. Those threats still exist. He says Israel's pretty much on its own. The UN and the rest of the world are telling them don't do anything precipitous. What makes them think they're going to do something precipitous? If they do something that is hard and specific and does destruction. That's not precipitous. It says Israel has to balance its support from other countries. All these conditions placed on a country that's trying to defend itself, and the people trying to defend itself, themselves. From a guy who surrendered in Afghanistan, caused he, not alone, but the others, 13 of our soldiers to be killed. God knows how many American citizens are there. Nobody even talks about it. Nobody. But I got to thinking, I went on a couple of shows. They called me when I was there on Saturday, sitting in the, I didn't go to the shelter. My wife didn't go to the shelter. We went to the parking lot under the hotel and right outside the parking lot. And I was stewing. I was furious that I was sitting there. First of all, I wished I could do something, which obviously I couldn't. But I was pissed at the fact that I was there. And I got to thinking about all this. I was reading information that was coming fresh over the transom from legitimate sources in the Middle East before they got to the United States. And I posted it for you. And I said, I've been doing a lot of thinking about the lunacy of Biden's Iran policy. Biden's position refusing to support Israel from taking offensive military action against Iran means that Biden will not support, listen, this is important, any military strikes against Iran's nuclear facilities, and that Iran will have a functioning nuclear arsenal with which to threaten the United States, Israel, the Arab world, and the rest of the world without fear of military attack. Now, why did I write that? Because that was the time for Biden to talk to Netanyahu about taking out those nuclear sites. We have our military there. We would back them up. They can take them out, and that would be that. But instead, he immediately says, no offense. No offensive military action. How many militaries around the world would say, okay, that's fine, no offensive military action when you're surrounded by Islamist terrorists, funded by Iran, which is funded by the United States. You're surrounded. This is a country of about 13 million, 7 million Jews, give or take, by 1 billion people. And everybody keeps saying Hezbollah has 150,000 precision missiles. Iran triggered October 7th. Biden paid for it. The best time for Israel to have hit Iran's nuclear sites with critical U.S. support would have been now, I wrote, meaning some days back. Biden's appeasement of Iran and intentional funding of Iran, lack of deterrence against Iran, and efforts to crippling Israel's efforts to neutralize Iran's military and terrorist operations ensures that Islamist-fundamentalist Iran will become a nuclear power. Then what? And once that occurs, there will be few options to limit Iran's ambitions short of a devastating confrontation with frightening risks. What will we do if Iran closes the Red Sea and other navigable waters used to transport oil? And it will also contribute even further to the firepower of China, Russia, North Korea, Iran axis, and cause other Middle East countries to acquire nuclear weapons. This is the world Biden and Blinken are creating while sanctimoniously lecturing about their efforts to de-escalate military confrontations. Again, the crucial point is that Biden has not only signaled to Iran that no effective action will be taken to stop its nuclear program, but Biden has actually acted to ensure that Iran's final path to building nuclear weapons is open and clear. Hard break. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Our once mighty dollars under siege from runaway inflation. For those still working, your paychecks buy less while costs for gas, food, cars, utilities skyrocket thanks to inflation. That's why I'm urging all my listeners to register for the upcoming Gold and Silver Summit hosted by our friends at Advantage Gold. It's a fantastic seminar. They'll teach you how to take steps to help guard your wealth from inflation using asset diversification into physical precious metals. Gold and silver hold intrinsic value that should remain untouched by government manipulation. Folks, don't wait for the Fed's reckless policies to completely devalue the dollar and steal your life savings. Call now while free registration is open. I'm telling you, this is a fantastic seminar. Call 800-900-8000 right now. The Gold and Silver Summit could provide the vital insights we need to protect our families. 800-900-8000. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. Performance may vary. Past performance is not indicative of future results. Always consult your financial and tax professionals. There's a lot more to get to, as well as the other subjects, but 3 of the missiles were intercepted over Jerusalem, at least 3 that we heard. We were in our hotel room. We were not sleeping, kind of dozing off. It was the middle of the night. I can't give you the exact time. I don't remember. Maybe 5 in the morning or whatever. The hours are so strange because Israel's 7 hours ahead from the East Coast. So me, being an insomniac anyway, I'm really never sleeping, Mr. Producer. And then it was boom, boom, boom. I said, uh-oh, we know what that is. Let's go. Because you don't want to be stuck in a hotel room with a window and so forth. So we immediately moved. And most people went to the shelters. I kept thinking about 9/11, everybody being told where to go and often told to the wrong places and what to do. So we headed down the stairwells, 3 levels under the ground, right near where the parking lot was. I'll be right back. Attention, fellow Americans. Mark Levin here with a warning and a solution. I feel like our country's being destroyed by out-of-control spending and debt thanks to Biden and the American Marxists. And your hard-earned savings and retirement could be at risk from their socialist schemes. That's why you should consider Advantage Gold, the best of the best, a U.S.-based company that specializes in helping everyday Americans protect their wealth. They have a simple solution to help you even potentially grow your wealth despite the attacks from Washington. I urge you to register for their upcoming Gold and Silver Summit. It's fabulous. A free online event where you'll learn tips to help safeguard your finances by diversifying into physical precious metals. Call 800-900-8000. Call them right now to sign up securely for this pivotal summit. It is crucial. Tell them Mark Levin sent you for a special bonus. Call 800-900-8000 right now. Performance may vary. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
The Mark Levin Show, live and national at 877-381-3811.
You know, to be intentionally funding Iran and its terrorist regime and its nuclear program, that's what's happening. Intentionally. And then to appease Iran, obviously is going to lead to a massive problem. And that's what is meant by no support for offensive military action against Iran by Israel. The idea that missile defenses are the answer to preventing offensive strikes against Israel or any country is lunacy. On its face, it's illogical. It is a deterrent under certain circumstances, maybe in many. But ultimately, you don't stop missile attacks by chasing another country's missiles. You stop missile attacks with certainty by destroying that country's capacity for launching missiles and or deterring such attacks by subjecting that country to punishing offensive military attacks. And despite Biden's massive and current propaganda operation to the contrary, facts are facts. It's beyond debate that the duplicitous to create the events that took place in the skies over Israel a few nights ago. That's what I posted. And of course, Israel was in the dark about it. This is the same Biden regime that outrageously demands tactical approval over Iran's battlefield decisions. Why? Because it wouldn't have gone along. Israel's not going to go along with treachery that puts its people through such heinous subterfuge. Think about how morally corrupt, among other things, the Biden regime's actions truly are. Now, what am I talking about? Ladies and gentlemen, it's a report out of the Middle East. I believe it was in the Jerusalem Post, that Iran gave a heads up to Iraq, Turkey, and Jordan. And all three gave a heads up to the United States what Iran was going to do and when they were going to do it. The Biden regime denies it. Now, Biden had the king of Jordan next to his side a couple months ago to trash Israel. Why would Jordan lie about this? In fact, why would Turkey and Iraq lie about it, as detestable as that mass murder is in Turkey? But why would he lie about it? They have nothing to gain from that. And apparently the Biden administration said back, okay, but don't, that's kind of got to be the limits to what you can do. And so that's one of the reasons we were repositioning some of our ships, some of our capabilities in the Middle East, because they were tipped off. But they didn't tell the Israelis. Now, Biden and the Iranian regime sympathizer Blinken coordinated with Iran over the timing, types of missiles, and even Iranian propaganda. Even before the first missile was intercepted, the Iranian mouthpiece at the UN said, this is it. This is all we're going to do. This should put an end to it. And so everybody had the message, like a conga line of Rockette dancers at Radio City Music Hall. All the European countries said exactly the same thing, almost at exactly the same time. The United States. Our media were saying the same thing. The bought and paid for generals were saying the same thing. The enemy was saying the same thing. Okay, they'll be done. 300 missiles. Take a victory lap, Israel. Take a victory lap? The purpose of this coordinated propaganda campaign was to prevent Israel from pulverizing Iran's military capabilities. This was not urban warfare, ladies and gentlemen, like Gaza. Israel has one of the most powerful air forces on the face of the earth. Not one of the biggest, one of the most powerful. And it has significantly advanced technical military systems. So the Biden regime began leaking immediately to their favorite reporters. This guy, Barik Raviv, who's an Israeli, writes for Axios and others. I'm going to hand him, Mr. Producer, the Head Up Biden's Ass Award, because he's their go-to guy. There's a few others, too, when they want to put information out, and he's more than happy to do it for them. So they began leaking immediately to their favorite reporters and media outlets, many of the same press sympathizers they relied on during the Obama regime to promote the Iran nuclear deal. And so they were leaking that Israel had provoked Iran by taking out 7 of its generals, including Soleimani's replacement, who was in Syria in a phony consulate building, which was actually an Iranian bunker, directing attacks on Israel and weapons transfers to Israel, against Israel, and was involved in the October 7 attack. So the Israelis said, we're taking this bastard out. So the leaking was Israel had provoked Iran and they hadn't told the U.S. in advance about the planned attack. Why do you think? Because they leaked to the New York Times and this guy Barak Ravid, who's a self-hating Israeli, I guess. They can't trust Biden and Blinken. That's why. Israel didn't forewarn Blinken because he would have leaked it to the media. And Israel's not obliged to get permission from Biden on how and whether to defend its people. Biden and Blinken are hostile to Israel and seek to overthrow its democratic government. There they are. Netanyahu should have told us. Well, they've organized and helped fund his overthrow. Not that of the head of Iran or Turkey. No, Israel. They've repeatedly told this openly to the entire world, including the Iranians, that they want to take out the leadership in Israel. Every one of these shocking and appalling Biden regime mobster tactics, and there are more, with the scheming and the plotting and the leaking and the usurping and the backstabbing against a longtime and essential loyal ally, which is in a daunting and bloody war literally triggered by the insane policies of the Biden regime, is beneath contempt. And I found out something else when I was there from one of the horses' mouths. Although they're quiet about it, Israel took out most of the missiles, most of the supersonic missiles. Israel has an extraordinarily advanced and elaborate air defense system. No air defense system is perfect. And I want to explain this to you. The whole SDI idea, the Strategic Defense Initiative, came from Ronald Reagan. It was called SDI, the Strategic Defense Initiative. The media immediately started calling it Star Wars. Let me know when you send that to me, Mr. Producer. Are you having trouble with it? Immediately started calling it Star Wars and mocking it. And one of the leading senators who was mocking it was Joe Biden. Reagan used to talk about the ability to shoot a bullet out of the air with another bullet. That was the goal. Oh, Star Wars, that's a fantasy. On at least one occasion, he shut down the government because they so slashed funding for what became the Patriot missile system and his efforts to have it, work through and actually go through the practices of seeing if it worked, that he put his foot down. The Democrat Party opposed SDI and the Patriot missile system. They opposed it. They fought it. The media opposed it. They fought it. They mocked Reagan over and over again. Oh, Star Wars. Oh, we're wasting tens of billions when we could be feeding the hungry. Oh, you know how it goes. But he demanded it. He insisted on it. It also won the Cold War because Gorbachev wet himself over it. Oh, good God, what do they have there? And all through the reporting on the fantastic performance of the missiles shooting down missiles, not once did Ronald Reagan get any credit. And not once was it mentioned that Joe Biden in 1986, as Henninger writes at the Wall Street Journal, mocked as, quote, reckless the idea of defending against ballistic missiles. Reckless. That was Biden. Biden was trying to sabotage the whole program. I want you to keep that in mind. So some of this that took place on that Saturday night when we were in Israel was choreographed, including the propaganda. That's not to say it's not a magnificent technological display that we should be proud of and the Israelis should be proud. That's not my point. My point is you have the Biden administration through Blinken that has been a special pleader for Iran, that's been funding Iran, that hired this guy Malley, who hired other people, backdooring us, helping Iran get a nuclear weapon. And they still are, and they have no plan to stop it. They won't even let the Israelis stop it. No offensive acts against Iran, because I guarantee you that's what they had in mind. I don't know it for a fact, but I'm sure it was. Now's the time. But they would have gotten no backup from the United States. That's why I'm convinced, unless Israel does it itself, which is very difficult, they're going to get a nuclear weapon. And when they get one, they'll have 10. And when they have 10, they'll have 101. Because Biden won't even let the Israelis take it out. Then I got to thinking a little bit more, ladies and gentlemen, while I'm over there. This is David versus Goliath. This is not Israel versus Hamas, although Hamas needs to be destroyed and crushed in 1,000 different ways. This isn't Israel versus Hezbollah. Same thing. I'm certainly not downplaying it. That's not my point. This is Israel versus Iran. This is David, that's Israel, versus Goliath, which is Iran. Iran has probably 12 to 15 times a larger population as Israel. They have more tanks than Israel. They have slowly surrounded Israel with surrogate terrorist regimes, armed with missiles up the wazoo. Israel is David. Iran's Goliath. Israel's the victim. Iran is the perpetrator. That's the war that's taking place. Iran's direct attack on Israel with over 300 missiles makes it crystal clear. Israel is David, Iran is Goliath. Iran has surrounded Israel with terrorist surrogates that are relentlessly, daily attacking the Jewish state. The Biden administration has funded Iran. It's rearmed Iran. Iran is on the precipice of completing its nuclear missile development with no U.S. plan to stop them. No offensive activity. Not by Israel, no. Take a victory lap. It's over. And helping Iran, Goliath, against Israel, David, is unbelievable act of duplicity and betrayal by the Biden regime. And the Biden regime is now threatening to abandon Israel if it retaliates against Iran to deter further offensive military attacks against its cities and its towns. In fact, the Biden regime demands that Israel declare victory in a suicide act of self-deception and has organized a PR campaign I keep talking about, really against Israel. Israel's going to retaliate. How and when? We don't know. They can't stand for this. Of course, Biden stands for it. That's fine. But Israel's not required to join Biden's suicide pact, which he's dragging our country down. They're not required to force to join us. We could only wish we had a leader like Netanyahu rather than a sinister and moronic schemer like Biden. That is a fact. That is a fact. Now, I'm not going to come on this radio program and tell you things that didn't happen when we were there. That we were sheltering and we were shivering and the missiles flew right over our heads and that. No, although the missiles came pretty damn close, flying over the hotel, but that's beside the point. You're a little nervous, but at no point was I or were my family scared. At no point were we in direct danger. Unless, of course, one of those things would have hit the hotel directly. I'm no hero. I'm not Superman. I went there to see with my own two eyes what the hell's going on so I could report back to you. The truth. The truth. The fact is that there was this choreography to a point that took place. The fact is that Iran does fear a massive strike from Israel. The fact is that our government has been working around the back of we the people and deceived us on how it's supporting Iran. It's supporting Iran in every respect. And the fact is that our government is on the wrong side of a lot of these battles. And when you have a guy like Blinken, who's a Marxist ideologue, whose family has ties to Soros, and this is not hyperbole, these are facts, and they listen to a buffoon like Thomas Friedman, who's wrong all the time, you can see what danger we're in and what danger they put another country in. The difference is the Israelis, I said, have nowhere to go. That's their home. And they're going to fight for it. And they didn't elect Biden. They didn't elect Blinken. And if it means not getting support from the United States, they're still going to fight for it. They have no choice. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
My fellow Americans, we're living in very perilous economic times. Washington seems determined to bankrupt our nation with endless stimulus spending. As they devalue our dollar, hard-working Americans like you could lose everything. That's why I urge you strongly, register for the upcoming Gold and Silver Summit hosted by our friends at Advantage Gold. They'll teach you how to help guard your wealth using asset diversification into physical precious metals. Gold and silver can offer a defense against the dollar's devaluation, and the experts at Advantage Gold will explain how you can convert some of your savings into precious metals that can protect and potentially grow your wealth. With currency debasement from Washington and global uncertainty on the rise, gold and silver diversification can offer you some stability. Call 800-900-8000 right now to sign up. 800-900-8000 now. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. Performance may vary. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. You should always consult your financial and tax professional. The Israeli missile defense system, the Iron Dome and the Arrow missile defense systems, as well as a few others, very, very advanced. The Arrow defense system deals with these atmospheric ballistic missiles, and that's how the Israelis were able to take out most of those on their own. This has been a joint project between the United States and Israel for about 40 years, since Reagan in 1986. And the reason is the Israeli technological know-how, their industries that develop these various technologies are second to none. Second to none. Even beyond Silicon Valley. They have to be, because they have no chance for mistakes. And so the deal is that they work on them, we work on them, they apply their technologies to them, and then they share their technology with the United States. Some people say, well, what is it far away? What's it with the Jews and the Zionists and so forth? It's a two-way street. My question is, where are all our missile defense systems? Which of our cities are protected? It's an important question, isn't it? It's also top secret. I used to know about it. I don't know anything today. It's been decades, but the Israelis take our F-15s, our F-16s, our more advanced fighters. They take our tank systems, and they improve on them with their technologies, and then they share that information with the United States so we can as well. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
You know, folks, many decades ago, there's a man by the name of Billy Mitchell. He's a pilot. He's a general. I don't believe we had a formal Air Force at the time. But he pushed hard, very hard, for an Air Force. He dreamed of planes that would fly off ships. And he believed that was the future. And that we needed to get in front of all the other countries. And he was mocked. And he was basically hounded out of his key positions. And when you have people like this, he was the father of the U.S. Air Force, who are willing to take a stand. It's like patting on the tanks. Fort Sam Houston. Fort Sam Houston, one of the oldest military installations in the U.S., has been the home to many famous figures over the years, writes the U.S. Army. Construction began in 1876, and since its establishment, Fort Sam has played an integral part in American military history. Fort Sam has seen the likes of many famous generals, including John J. Pershing, Dwight David Eisenhower, Joe Stilwell, Benjamin Fiolis, many more. But of all the prominent military generals housed on the post, none were more turbulent and controversial than General William Billy Mitchell. Even though Faulius was given the honor of father of the military flight, Mitchell, a staunch advocate and visionary of air power, became regarded as the father of the United States Air Force because he was instrumental in bringing to the forefront the need for air superiority. He also believed that bombers should take the place of battleships and there should be a separate command for the air service. He once said, "Nothing can stop the attack of aircraft except other aircraft." He grew up in Wisconsin. He enlisted in the Army in 1898. During the Spanish-American War, he served in Cuba, the Philippines, Alaska, Europe. And nobody will ever talk about this man but me. 1913, Mitchell was promoted to captain, became the youngest officer to serve on the general staff. In 1916, he was moved to Virginia, became interim commander of Army Aviation, which at the time was a division of the Army Signal Corps. After the new commander arrived, Mitchell was promoted to the rank of major. He assumed the position of deputy commander of Army Aviation. And that's where Mitchell got his first taste of flying, where his passion for aviation began to grow. So much so that he decided to become an Army pilot. But at the age of 38, he was told he was too old. But he didn't care. He flew anyway. After World War I, he returned to the U.S., Despite his achievements, he reverted back to his permanent rank of colonel due to air service drawdown in the manpower. He also learned he was not going to be appointed head of the Army Air Service. Nonetheless, he still became an advocate of an independent Air Force and so forth. But he became very vocal, increasingly vocal in his opinion about the need to strengthen our air power. He publicly attacked superiors in the Army, Navy, even the White House, making a statement to the New York Times, December 6, 1919, that read, "The United States had produced practically no aerial war equipment since the armistice. Consequently, was not capable of meeting any first-class power in the air today as foreign countries had continued the development of wartime equipment," quote, unquote. He testified before Congress. He called for a demonstration in which airplanes would bomb ships. He said he could prove that they could. They reluctantly gave in to Congress and the Navy. July 20 and 21, Mitchell and the 1st Provisional Air Brigade demonstrated to the world the superiority of air power. Mitchell was transferred to Fort Sam Houston, where he was assigned as the aviation officer. He lived there for a period of time. But his frustration climaxed after the Navy's airship Shenandoah crashed due to weather in September 1925. He publicly accused the Navy and War Departments of incompetence and criminal negligence. He said brave airmen are being sent to their deaths by armchair admirals who don't care about their safety. That was the beginning of the end of his career in the military. He was called to Washington and court-martialed on the charge of conduct of prejudice, of good order, and military discipline in a way to bring discredit upon the military service. He was convicted of insubordination, but rather than serve a 5-year suspension, he decided to resign his commission. And during his retirement in Virginia, he continued to be outspoken on the importance of air power. He wrote books, newspaper, magazine articles, gave lecture tours until his death in 1936. Of course, he received many posthumous awards because he was prescient. He was frustrated with the military bureaucracy. He got a posthumous promotion to Major General by President Harry Truman. Military aircraft bomber, the B-25 Mitchell, was named after him. In 1979, he was inducted into the International Hall of Fame. Mitchell had predicted that a war between Japan and the U.S. was inevitable. That prophecy came to fruition on December 7, 1941. Mitchell's presence on post and the Sentinel military flight will be celebrated, and so forth. It goes on. He didn't die as any great hero, but he lived as one, and they tried to destroy him and humiliate him. And the reason he went public often is because they kept trying to smother the whole concept. And he said no. Almost 41 years to the day, March 23rd. 41 years ago, Ronald Reagan announced the Strategic Defense Initiative. He was immediately mocked by the Democrats, including Joe Biden, that it was a fantasy, that we didn't have the science currently. The idea that a bullet could shoot a bullet or a missile could shoot a missile was absurd, unimaginable. He insisted on starting it. He got off to a shaky start. First they defunded it, then they slashed the funding for it. He fought like hell for the SDI, including, as I said, shutting down the government on at least one occasion. But Reagan knew what he knew. He could foresee what could happen. The program would have been more vigorous, and it would have been obviously more quickly instituted, and I believe its institution here in our country has been very, very lacking to protect our own cities. And of course, Gorbachev feared it. They had no such technology. Reagan needed monies from Congress to try the systems out, because, you know, they don't work from the first shot. You got to work at, and build up the systems. He was constantly blocked by the likes of the Democrats, and he'd had enough. He pushed for it, and they got some money to him, but not the kind of monies he wanted. And all through those 300 missiles that were shot at Israel, drones and cruise missiles. Cruise missile was also developed under Reagan. And the intercontinental ballistic missiles, not one word about where Joe Biden had stood. That there would be no such systems if Joe Biden had succeeded. None. There would be no such systems if the Democrat Party had succeeded. None. There would be no such systems if Mr. Conservative Ronald Reagan hadn't been elected president. None. None. And when the Iranians hit one of our ships, Reagan wasn't worried about escalating. That was escalating enough. He destroyed half their Navy, and he destroyed their major refinery. He didn't hesitate. He didn't think about it. He didn't say, well, we're not going to go on offense. We're not going to expand this war. He said, I'm going to put these little bastards back into the rat's nest they came from. And he did. Muammar Gaddafi. He was involved in some terrorist act. I think it was in Berlin, but somewhere in Germany, that killed a number of our soldiers. Reagan pulled together his national security team and said, all right, how do I take this guy out? I've had enough of this Gaddafi. France would not allow us to fly over their airspace, France being what it is. Never fully recovered from its Vichy days. But Thatcher was a great patriot. She adored Reagan and he her. So we used a base in England. We had to fill our bombers in midair, which is a very dangerous feat. And they bombed his palace, and they just missed him. He hit part of his palace. Part of his family perished, as I recall. We never heard from Gaddafi again. Iran attacked our forces in Iraq often. Trump had enough of it. He ordered, take out Soleimani, and he took him out. Didn't hear much from Iran after that, did we? And cut through all the propaganda that's going on from the media, from the administration, from other world capitals, ladies and gentlemen. What happened the other night with 300 missiles was an Iran that wasn't sure how to react to Israel because they didn't want to get pulverized. Let me tell you something about these drones that came in. And a few hours after the few of them were knocked out of the sky where we were, they had lights on them. You go on the internet, you look at them. You shouldn't be able to see drones at night. Maybe you can see some of the smoke from the engines and so, but you can't. But drones aren't lit up. The reason you send them at night is so you try to avoid detection. Well, why were they lit up? No, to show them. That's why. Why else would you light them up? And you know, and I know, all of a sudden Joe Biden comes back. There he is at Rehoboth Beach, doing God knows what he does. Probably gluing his teeth back into his head, taking that special medicine for people who need it. But comes back quickly, because they knew when the launch was going to be. And now Israel, you see, poor little Israel is supposed to just do what their masters tell them to do. They may have some impact, but it won't have the ultimate impact. David should not listen to Biden or Blinken. Goliath is staring them down. Goliath is nervous now, Iran. They're very nervous. We shall see what happens. But as you can see, I'm just slowly providing you with the information about the missiles, the information about SDI, the information about what took place that night, the information about the drones, the information about the communications through intermediaries to the United States about what was going to take place, the timing of the PR and so forth. This guy Kirby, by the way, is a sleazeball. I'd love to know how he became an admiral. Our buddy Charlie Kirk. Matter of fact, Mr. Producer, let's play that clip where he denies Kirby that they provided any money to Iran. Let's see. Ducey pegs him, I think. Let's go for 12. Go ahead.
Now that we know that the Iranians do not listen to President Biden's public warnings, is there any regret here about unfreezing billions of dollars for Iranian leaders during the president's administration?
What unfreezing are you talking about?
He unfroze billions of dollars.
For Iranian leaders?
Yeah.
Really? I don't think so.
Okay,
so first of all,
it's for humanitarian purposes, but doesn't that...
But you don't believe me.
Well, doesn't that...
No, you're a lying sack of crap. Go ahead.
Where do you get the money for an unprecedented number of munitions to fire at Israel?
So first of all, I'm betting if they're sitting in Tehran, they're taking it seriously when President Biden says he's going to defend
shut up,
Israel.
you idiot. I'm not going to put up with this. So finally, somebody put a list together And that's Charlie Kirk. And he posted it. Let me help you out, Kirby. Derwin Kirby. $6 billion September 2023 as part of a prisoner swap. Blinken ensured Iranian funds removed into a restricted fund for humanitarian trade, whatever that means. $10 billion July 2023. Antony Blinken signed a national security waiver allowing Iraq to deposit payments for Iranian energy into non-Iraqi banks in third countries instead of into restricted accounts. $3.42 billion August 2021. The IMF sent $3.42 billion to Iran as special drawing rights. The Biden administration had the authority to stop it and chose not to. $80+ billion since 2021. Iran's oil exports have surged, breaking records because the Biden administration had eased enforcement of sanctions, allowing an explosion in illicit purchases, mostly from China. $3.8 billion since 2021. Iran turned to the sale of petrochemicals to avoid a Trump-era sanction. Sales have surged thanks to Biden. $1.6 billion since 2021. Trump administration imposed sanctions on Iran's steel industry, which the Biden administration has not enforced. The Biden administration says its commitment to Israel is ironclad, writes Kirk. But apparently so is its commitment to funding Iranian terrorism. That's the information, Kirby. And Peter Ducey, you might want to borrow it from Charlie Kirk for the next round. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Nowadays, $20 barely gets you a burger and fries and maybe a quarter tank of gasoline. You know what it will get you, though? For just $20 a month, you can get unlimited talk, text, and plenty of 5G data from my cell phone company, Pure Talk. You'll get the same quality of service as AT&T, Verizon, or T-Mobile, but for half the cost. The average family saves almost $1,000 a year, all with no contracts and no activation fees. You can trade your phone or get great deals on the latest iPhones and Androids. Make the switch today and save an additional 50% off your first month. Choose a wireless company that shares our values, that supports our military and veterans, that creates American jobs, and refuses to advertise on fake news networks. Instead, they're right here with us. Just go to puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin, and make the switch right now so you can actually afford that burger and fries. That's puretalk.com/Levin. Levin. So my plan is to slowly roll out information to you during the course of the week and next week, particularly as it becomes relevant to future events, because I do believe, and I have no firsthand knowledge, obviously, that Israel is going to strike Iran. How and when and where, I don't have the foggiest idea. And I do not believe they're going to provide a whole lot of information to the United States for one simple reason. Because Biden, Blinken, and Sullivan and their ilk, they leak the information, which puts the Israeli plan at risk, Israeli lives at risk. And they want these countermeasures to be successful. And even the people who were involved in developing the Strategic Defense Initiative in Israel and the United States, as my buddy Spiridon reminds me, they've all said that the most effective threat against an enemy is offensive weaponry. Defending your cities against them is not the same thing as them defending their cities against you. See the point, Mr. Producer? Then why doesn't Biden? I'll be right back. Nowadays, $20 barely gets you a burger and fries and maybe a quarter tank of gasoline. You know what it will get you, though? For just $20 a month, you can get unlimited talk, text, and plenty of 5G data from my cell phone company, Pure Talk. You'll get the same quality of service as AT&T, Verizon, or T-Mobile, but for half the cost. The average family saves almost $1,000 a year, all with no contracts and no activation fees. You can trade your phone or get great deals on the latest iPhones and Androids. Make the switch today and save an additional 50% off your first month. Choose a wireless company that shares our values, that supports our military and veterans, that creates American jobs, and refuses to advertise on fake news networks. Instead, they're right here with us. Just go to puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin, and make the switch right now so you can actually afford that burger and fries. That's puretalk.com/Levin, Levin.
Mark Levin, the thunder on the right. Call in now, 877-381-3811.
Did you miss me? I missed you folks, that's for sure. Got a lot of notes here, a lot of stuff I want to talk about, but we'll get to it. Can't do it all in one show. All right, impeachment. I posted for you a opening statement I gave on Life, Liberty, and Levin in February, laying out the entire impeachment issue, which, of course, is relevant to this moment. And if you want one of the best books ever written about impeachment, I would argue it's the best book ever written about impeachment without having to go through Madison's notes and all the rest of it. I encourage you to check out Raoul Berger's 1973 book, Impeachment, The Constitutional Problems. He was a professor at Harvard Law School. He was a friend with Robert Bork over a period of time. And as he explains, and as I will summarize, and as I explained at length on my Fox show, which is why I linked it on my social sites, high crimes and misdemeanors have nothing to do with the criminal code. There was no criminal code before there was a Constitution. There was no federal government at the time. So when I hear these former federal prosecutors, or whomever they are, defense counsel, go on about what impeachment means, unless you really study it, you really don't know. And they go all the way back to the 1300s, the English common law, to the practices subsequently by the Parliament, vis-a-vis the king. What sorts of things were impeachable, what sorts of things weren't. This is how the framers studied these things. This is how they looked at them. And the Berger's view, and I agree with him, when you look at the citations and go over them yourself, is that high crimes and misdemeanors refer to political crimes against the state. That is, if you're a senior officer, say, in the federal government, once they set it up, the national government, and you are attacking the body politic, you are attacking the culture, you're attacking now the Constitution, you are doing things that bring significant, if not grave, consequences against the body politic, that's an impeachable offense. There had to be a way to deal with that. Now, they were also concerned about Congress blackmailing a president. Remember, they were creating all this, all these offices and so forth. So they rejected what's called maladministration. High crimes and misdemeanors was added. So it's a level above maladministration. And again, you can look at Madison's notes. There's other notes, too, at the convention. They're much more sporadic. But Madison took the time to actually take notes, extensive notes, and he didn't release them until 50 years after the Constitutional Convention. So we get a lot of insight there. We get insight from the Federalist Papers. But the most insight we get is who they relied on. So when you think of it, a high crime and misdemeanor more as a political attack or a political violation or a political crime, if you will, against the state, against the people. So when Mitt Romney comes out and he says things like, these articles don't have impeachable offenses in them, he reveals himself as an idiot. Article 1 that was sent over to the Senate, I've read them before to you. They're quite involved. I won't read them again. dealt with the multiple occasions and sections of federal immigration law that Mayorkas violated. And there's many of them. And they spell it out. They spell out his actions. They spell out what the statute says. Because the president and his underlings, they all take an oath to uphold the Constitution. And that involves, as the Supreme Court has ruled, but as the Constitution says, in the executive branch, is to take care that the laws are administered, that they're executed. It's called the Take Care Clause. So if you don't do that, and even worse, if you undermine them, this is an ironclad impeachment case. Ironclad. And then the second article deals with the occasions in which Mayorkas repeatedly lied to committees of Congress. Operational control over the border's closed, and on and on and on. You're not free to keep going to Congress and changing your story or lying and all the rest of it. As to whether or not Biden should have been impeached or what has nothing to do with the other, despite the best efforts of some constitutional illiterates to say otherwise. They all take an oath. They all have an obligation. And so if the Republican House, which is a tiny majority, and they have a few reprobates, decides that it's easier to deal with Mayorkas and make the point and deal with it than Biden, that's a prudent decision. There's nothing irrational or contradictory. That's a prudent decision. Do what you can do. It's like abortion. Do what you can do. Fight what you can fight. Get some wins. Save some lives. It's the nature of the beast. And so what happened today is another nail in the coffin of our constitutional system. I hear Chad, I forget his last name on Fox, who's really quite a brilliant guy. He's like the Rain Man when it comes to Congress's procedures. But this wasn't about Congress's procedures. Chad Pergman. I don't know him, but he's obviously quite good. I'm just saying, to me, the focus should have been on the attack on the Constitution. This may not be an area he knows. He knows the process. And by the way, as I said, he is superb. That said, this isn't about process. What's the purpose of the impeachment clause? The House has a duty and the Senate has a duty. The House impeaches, the Senate tries. I searched everything I have and everything I know to find out where there is authority for the Senate not to hold a trial. It doesn't exist. Then we get into what's a trial. Well, we know what a trial is. We've had impeachment trials. That's what an impeachment trial is. We have precedent from way back. We don't have to reinvent the wheel and start playing word games, do we? That's a trial. Well, in criminal trials, you could just say it's not a criminal trial. It's a constitutional trial. Now, what else? You have a very high bar for convicting somebody in the Senate. You need 2/3. You need 67 senators. So the impeachment of a president hasn't succeeded yet. So people, why impeach him? I don't know. Why did they impeach Andrew Johnson? Because he was slow walking the Reconstruction. People are sympathetic to him. I'm not sympathetic to him at all, by the way. But that has nothing to do with anything either. The House has a job, and that's not to play Nostradamus and figure out the consequences. That's their job. So what did the Senate do today? Nothing. They took the impeachment articles, made a mockery of the entire process, were cheered by the media and their party, and destroyed another provision of the Constitution, one that's crucially important. The impeachment clause was the second most debated issue after the office of the presidency that they finally created. They spent a lot of time on it. They wanted to get it right, and they did get it right for the most part. So if you can send impeachment articles to the Senate about an official in a Democrat administration, and that Senate is 51-49 Democrat, The precedent now is it doesn't have to take it up, really. It can pretend to take it up. Why? I want you to listen to this, because it's not being explained properly anywhere. Chuck Schumer himself, and by himself, decided that Article 1 and Article 2 were unconstitutional. Based on what grounds? No grounds. Well, what did they debate? No debate allowed. Some Republicans tried to engage in a debate. They were cut off. Because they have rules, rules from 30 years ago or so that they put in place. I think they said 1983. That you can't, you can't debate these things during a trial. You're a jury. Oh, those rules will follow, but the Constitution we won't. The framers never contemplated that the Senate wouldn't take up the case and hold a trial. So what did Schumer do? He said Article 1 is unconstitutional. Then he puts it up to a vote. And, of course, 51 to 48 to 1. There's Lisa Murkowski. But all 51 Democrats, boy, those heels are clicking. Those knees are high in the air as they march one behind the next. And so they ruled that Article 1's unconstitutional without any debate, without any discussion. And then we hear, but Schumer offered them a 1 hour on each article. Schumer's not the king. What do you mean he offered them? A trial is supposed to take place. So if a bare majority of 51 can decide they're not going to take up this article or that article because their leader declares they're unconstitutional, that's now the end of it. That's it. It's over. Is that why the framers spent all this time on the impeachment clause? Of course not. And if they'd spent all this time on the impeachment clause, if they thought there would be an out, something short of a trial, wouldn't somebody had said something? Yes, but they didn't. But if you're so corrupt, if you lack any drop of virtue, and you take the Constitution and you twist it, there's nobody who can fix that. Well, take it to court. The court doesn't get involved in impeachments. Nor should it. Court's not always right. Keep handing it to these potentates, to this Politburo. Why? Chuck Schumer just destroyed the impeachment clause. Chuck Schumer was behind. He was the guy pushing for filibustering federal appellate court nominees. He destroyed the appointment process, the process that the Senate uses to give its okay or not. He destroyed it with the filibuster. Schumer did. They tried to destroy the 14th Amendment and use it to drag their agenda into the 14th Amendment by eliminating ballot spots for Trump. But we had to go through that for months, even though it was insane. And even the Supreme Court saw it, although 3 justices were wobbly, the usual Marxists. So why were Article 1 and Article 2 unconstitutional? We don't know. Policy, they were involved? No, they weren't. It had nothing to do with policy. They laid out the case. You had to be Helen Keller not to see it. So they protected their boy Mayorkas. And it was even worse. They wouldn't even have a final vote to dismiss. They just voted that Article 1's unconstitutional, Article 2's unconstitutional. Case closed. Do you see that, Mr. Producer? Case closed. It's over. Not even a vote to dismiss. No, it's over. Done. Forget it. More when I return. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Nowadays, $20 barely gets you a burger and fries and maybe a quarter tank of gasoline. You know what it will get you, though? For just $20 a month, you can get unlimited talk, text, and plenty of 5G data from my cell phone company, Pure Talk. You'll get the same quality of service as AT&T, Verizon, or T-Mobile, but for half the cost. The average family saves almost $1,000 a year, all with no contracts and no activation fees. You can trade your phone or get great deals on the latest iPhones and Androids. Make the switch today and save an additional 50% off your first month. Choose a wireless company that shares our values, that supports our military and veterans, that creates American jobs, and refuses to advertise on fake news networks. Instead, they're right here with us. Just go to puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin, and make the switch right now so you can actually afford that burger and fries. That's puretalk.com/Levin. Levin. I be here. What is it about Loudoun County, Virginia? I decided to move out to Loudoun County, Virginia a couple of decades ago. It wasn't quite the suburb. It was just very nice, mostly rural area. Then, of course, they built the Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Subway out here so more people could come out. Then they widened the roads so yet more people can come out. Then 80% of the internet traffic all around the country is based in Loudoun. Did you know that, Mr. Producer? And so we get all this stuff. And then we get these sleazeball, puke, left-wing Democrats like Julie Briskman. Who is Julie Briskman? She's the vice chair of the Board of Supervisors in Loudoun County, and she puts out a letter. She uses her position to put out what I consider to be an anti-Semitic. Next time a Board of Supervisors decide to have an overseas meeting, rather than one of these beautiful European capitals, why don't they pick Gaza, Iran, Lebanon?
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Yep. Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. The Trump case, this judge gets more grotesque as the days go on. The prosecutor is a real head case. We know who a number of the jurors are, not so much by name, but by information. And, a lot of jurors or would-be jurors kind of conceal what they really think and what they really believe, especially if they're Trump haters, Oh, I read the New York Post. Right, Mr. Producer? I listen to talk radio. Yeah, okay, great. There's nothing new to report today. Trump has handled this beautifully, brilliantly. He uses the occasion to go out to different areas in New York to meet the peeps. Something Biden never... Biden only campaigns where he's liked. Have you noticed that, Mr. Producer? Only where he's liked. And he's barely liked anywhere. So, that's rough. But, he goes to my hometown of Philadelphia. Oh, that's a tough one. Oh, Democrats won't win that one. And corrupt as hell. Corrupt as hell. You thought Chicago was corrupt? You don't know Philadelphia. And he goes, and he's Mr. Blue Collar Worker, That's right. Joe from Central Pennsylvania. Joe spent, his, I think his mother was in Scranton. She was 7 months pregnant. Then they moved to Wilmington. And look at this, I have my connections to Scranton. He has no connections to Scranton. He was a little tyke when they moved. And he only goes there to exploit it. So he'll win Scranton. Okay, got it. But the things he says about Trump on the campaign trail are really disgusting. You know, he's behind trying to bankrupt Trump, and now he makes a joke about it. You know, a fellow came up to me, needed his loan. His name was Don. I said, I don't have the money. Oh, my God. Guess what? What? Well, this communist Chinese dude came up to me, and he said, hey, you want $1 million to sell out your country? Excuse me. By the way, Mr. Producer, I'm going to have some chicken for dinner tonight. Did you know this? What part of the chicken do you like, seriously? You like the legs or turkey legs? I like the legs, too. What is it about the legs? Can you tell me? Legs! It's a message I'm sending out there. Speaker and funding. You know, for a lot of conservative hosts, it's either very difficult or they'll throw in with like a Thomas Massey or a Green or our buddy Chip or whatever. Makes it very easy. I like to think for myself. That's what I do. I don't play follow the leader. We lead here. That's what we do. So let's think this through. So they got rid of Kevin McCarthy, which I said, don't do that. And they did it. Now they're all regretting it. They want Kevin McCarthy. Now they want to get rid of Mike Johnson. By the way, they got to change this rule where one reprobate can get up and say, okay, I'm challenging the speaker. I'm challenging the speaker. I'm challenging the speaker. Shut up and sit down, you idiot. They're destroying us. They're rolling us. They're going to win the next election. Not because of me, not because of the people in this audience, not because of patriots and voters, because of the boneheads that we're sending to Congress. May I say? I think I will. No, I like Mass. He's been on the show. We've been friendly in the past. Not anymore. I've had enough of this stuff. He's a radical libertarian. That's okay. They're okay from time to time. But not when it comes to national security. I don't know about you, but I don't turn to libertarians when it comes to national security. And I'm not talking about the Patriot Act. I'm talking about real military buildup, national security, and supporting our allies. Now, suddenly it's become controversial to support our allies. What are you, a Zionist? What does that have to do with Taiwan? Wait, neocon? What are you? What are you over there? So now suddenly conservatism is about backing off and not supporting your allies. Do you know why we have allies? To protect us. To protect them, of course, it's mutual. Mutual. So here we have this tiny country, Ukraine, that is now losing to Russia because we won't supply them with arms. You need to understand, we don't send billions and billions of dollars to Ukraine and say, hey, spend this, whatever you want. They have no military industry because they were part of the Soviet Union. They have no nukes because we encouraged them, Clinton did, to sign a no-nuke deal, so they gave all their nukes to Russia. And so all of a sudden it's controversial to supply them with weapons. What does it have to do with us? What does it have to do with us, Mark? Everything. Do people not understand history? Do they not read about World War II? They don't know that Marxism and fascism and all the S that's come out of Europe is never dead. We just have periods. We have little respite periods here from time to time. We had World War I, Europe. World War II, Europe. I'm just telling you. And why is it, if it's not a big deal, well, then why is Russia doing it? And then people come up with justifications. Why are they aligning with China? Why are they all aligning with North Korea? Why are all three of them aligning with Iran? I don't know. What could it possibly be? I don't know. Why are they all getting together and sharing their military equipment? And why in the world are they doing that? Why is Russia building hypersonic missiles and killer satellites? Must be to get Ukraine, don't you think? Why is China now managing both ends of the Panama Canal? Why do they have 27 locations in our hemisphere? Why do they have a deep water port in the Solomon Islands, for God's sakes? Ooh, and why do they have a deep water port on the western side of Africa toward America? Why? Why does Iran want a nuclear weapon to put on its intercontinental ballistic missiles? Do you see the little bastards in the street saying death to America? That's bought and paid for by your tax dollars in our colleges and universities. That's bought and paid for by Hamas's network. That's bought and paid for by Qatar, Communist China. Why are they out there doing these things, trying to overthrow our country? And what about Taiwan? Not long ago, there was Hong Kong. Not anymore. Now there's Taiwan. So as I see it, ladies and gentlemen, the Communist Chinese are within a whisker of controlling the South China Sea. Why do we care? Why? Because 30% of all the world's commerce goes through the South China Sea. Ooh, I didn't know. The Red Sea, the Houthis, these little desert punk rats, funded by the Biden administration via Iran, a couple of missiles, they shut it down, then most of the world's oil doesn't get to us or anybody else. Ooh, I never thought about that. Why is Russia in Antarctica? I don't know. Maybe they like the cold. Maybe Siberia's melting. You know, climate change, Mark. All these countries are on the move. Every damn one of them. They're in our hemisphere. They're in the skies above our country. They have deep water bases in the Pacific, which they never had before. They have contractual control of both ends of the Panama Canal. You know how hard it is for our Navy? If that's the case, why do you think we built the Panama Canal? You must be a warmonger, you neocon Zionist! Yeah, right. Dumb bastards. These fools with the comment, but I happen to know most of them are put in there by the Russians and the Iranians, so I don't worry about comments. I don't even read the comments. I get it. Whatever I say, they'll flock in and go, "Oh, look at you, you're a warmonger." No, I'm actually a peace activist. I know my history, ancient and modern. I also know the history of Rome. Or Rome fiddled. Remember that, Mr. Producer? The country burned. I bet you didn't know there were a lot of fiddlers in Washington, D.C. Oh, yeah, a whole orchestra full. They fiddle. They issue press releases. They get on TV, including our precious Fox, and they tell us the way the world should be. But they have a problem. They just can't seem to get us there. They've had every chance in the world. Some of them sit on the House Rules Committee. Some of them are in the Freedom Caucus. Some of them are on this committee and that committee, and they just can't seem to get the job done. And it's always somebody else's fault. They start to sound like Biden. It's always somebody else's fault. It was McCarthy, now it's Johnson. Of course, we live in what's called a republic, and people actually vote for members of the House, and we have a bare majority. And some of these Republicans are not like you and me. Some of them are what we technically call squishes. Squishes! Which means we don't have a working majority. For you and me, we don't. So why do some people keep pretending that we do? I've asked some of these people, what would you do? Well, if they only do. I said, how are you going to do it? They have no idea. None. Zero. Now, of course, that doesn't mean you buckle and you throw in the towel and you do. It means you get the best you can get. If we had a 20-vote majority, I'd say we're talking about a totally different ballgame, folks. 100%. I've been doing this a long time. I've been a conservative activist longer than some people have been on this earth. I don't need their press releases, and I don't need their lectures. I do wonder what the hell they've accomplished. Almost nothing. Oh, they'll accomplish handing the speakership over to Hakeem Jeffries. That'll be good. I don't give a damn how they do it. Israel, Taiwan, and Ukraine need their arms. They don't have big industrial, economies that can build the kind of things that can be built in China and even Russia. They don't have it. Taiwan and Israel are just too small. And yet look how much genius comes out of these countries. The silicon chips that we use, 80% of them come out of Taiwan. Now, it's one thing to say as president, we got to do it here in the United States, but we haven't done it here in the United States. They did it. So much of this military technology that we brag as ours actually comes out of Israel. That's okay. That's what allies do. That's good. That's what we want. But it is not in our best interest as a people. With children and grandchildren, we do not want to send a war to keep surrendering the higher ground. There have been a lot of false prophets out there, America. A lot of false prophets who make outrageous statements that seem very appealing. Except when it's too late. I am telling you now, right here, to millions and millions of you, if we don't wake the hell up, change our psychology, change our priorities, if we don't build up our military and show our military personnel respect, if we don't muscle up our allies that are on the front lines that are being threatened, 2 of them are under attack, 1 of them's going to be under attack, we're going to look around one day and we're going to have a big problem. And then there won't be a volunteer military, there will be a draft. And all the false prophets who talked about these escalatory wars and sound like George McGovern, they actually sound like Biden and Blinken. It'll be they who escalated. It'll be they who provoked. Otherwise, why not slash our military in half, ladies and gentlemen? What are we preparing for? If we're not going to support our allies, then why produce the weapons? Just give it all to the climate changers. Why produce the weapons? We seem to forget that the number one priority of the United States government is to protect us, both from it and from our foreign enemies. To keep saying, well, what does that have to do? That's 8,000 miles away. I just want to remind you that for the continental United States, Hawaii is not exactly close. I just want to remind you that with intercontinental ballistic missiles that are shot, let's say from Beijing or somewhere in China, it takes 30 minutes to hit our cities, or less, because now they're hypersonic, 10 minutes. We have nothing to stop them. Nothing. They're so far ahead of us on hypersonic missiles, it's not even funny. And there's not a single defensive missile that's going to be able to stop a single one of them. Imagine that. I am telling the Republicans, the so-called conservatives, because most of them are not. There's something else. They're just not conservative. You get those weapons to these countries, or we the people are going to hold you to account. You may think you're a popular side now or a populist side now, but when all S breaks loose, it'll be on you. It'll be on you. I don't want your press releases. I don't want your requests to come on the show. I've heard your bull crap long enough. If you're so smart, fix it and do it. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
This Elise Stefanik, she really is a superstar. She just is. And there are a handful of superstars. It's not to say there's only one, but she's definitely one. And she's a bulldog in terms of how she pursues some of these things. I want you to hear some of this in the next half hour. They have the president of Columbia University, which you know is a hotbed of Marxist, Islamist, America-hating, Jew-hating education. And she doesn't give up, and she's incredibly intelligent. She went to Harvard herself, and of course, it reminds me of my high school in Cheltenham, Pennsylvania. You know, they put everybody in the Hall of Fame, Mr. Producer. Reggie Jackson, Netanyahu some time ago, although I'm sure they'd like to remove him. But they will not vote me into their Hall of Fame. It's not like I'm sitting on the edge of my chair. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin, tough as hell.
That's why I like Mark Levin. And I'm not sure a lot of people like him. He's tough as hell. But I like him. I love him.
Call in now. 877-381-3811.
He better win, boy. I'll tell you what. As we get closer and closer, you and I, America, we got to figure this out. Because, I was thinking about this when I was out of the country, too. I don't know of another human being that's faced 4 criminal trials at the same time, Mr. Producer. Have you ever heard of such a thing? He's facing 4 criminal trials simultaneously. I mean, even in the worst case scenario, one will wait for another. No, they all want to run their trials simultaneously. And when the one in Florida tries to slow down, she's in the back pocket, she's it. It's just sick. Does anybody know of one person who's facing 4 criminal trials at the same time, as well as a civil trial? I don't know of any. I've never heard of it before. I was thinking about this. Well, Elise Stefanik, Timanusha Shakif, or whatever the hell her name is, president of Columbia. Cut one, go.
As the chair of the School of Arts and Sciences Academic Review Committee, Professor Mossad is responsible for, quote, overseeing... That's
obviously not Elise. That's another Congress person, but it will get to her. Go ahead.
...review of all departments, centers, and institutes in the school.
Yell.
Do you stand behind Professor Mossad remaining chair of the Academic Review Committee, giving his support for terrorism and harassing Jewish students?
Congressman Walbrook, I just want to confirm that when faculty behave in any discriminatory fashion at Columbia...
You talk to them.
There are consequences. No, we take them out of the classroom if necessary.
Is he out of the classroom?
From leadership posts if necessary. We allow students to leave those classes if they feel at all uncomfortable.
You ever fire these guys?
Is he out of the classroom?
He is. I believe, to answer your question, he is no longer chair of that committee and does not have a leadership role.
Just to follow up, you should know this, President Shafiq, but Mossad is still, in fact, listed on the Columbia website as chair of the Academic Review Committee. Are you aware of that?
I would need to check that.
It's the website's right
I don't
here.
want to misstate because
So he hasn't been removed as chair.
I would like to.
Do you have my commitment he'll be removed as chair today?
I have my commitment that I will come back to you and give you the facts.
So
first.
He hasn't been removed. So you said in front of Congress under oath that
I said I am not sure.
He was removed. Well, I'll tell you what, he's still listed on chair.
She's tough. She's damn good. Cut 2, go.
Do you believe that he should be removed as chair? Because currently he's listed as chair on Columbia University's website.
I don't believe any professor at Columbia should say anything like what our professors have to be held to a higher standard than our students. And I can tell you that,
but you can't say at this hearing that he should be removed as chair, even though he violates university rules.
I would not want him as chair, and we are looking at the issue of faculty and what we expect from our faculty. Mr. Greenwald, do you think he should be removed as chair?
His comments are abhorrent, and I believe that one of the steps that we could take in terms of discipline is to remove him from that leadership position.
Thank you for that direct answer. And just to let you know, Mr. Abdu is not grading papers right now. He's on campus at the unsanctioned anti-Israel, anti-Semitic event that is being supported by pro-Hamas activists on campus. So that's what Professor Abdu is doing at this very moment.
By the way, for the Jewish members of the House and Chuck Schumer, Elise Stefanik is not Jewish. And look how she's running this thing or pushing this thing. Where are they, Mr. Producer? Well, I'm asking you, you're Catholic. Where are they? I don't know where they are. Pathetic. Cut 3, go.
Let me ask about Professor Catherine Frank from the Columbia Law School, who said that all Israeli students who have served in the IDF are dangerous and shouldn't be on campus. What disciplinary action has been taken against that professor?
I agree with you that those comments are completely unacceptable and discriminatory.
But I'm asking you what disciplinary action has been taken.
In other words, Madam President, you have a lot of sick bastards on your faculty. A lot of them. What are you doing with them? Ladies and gentlemen, do you understand there's faculty like this on virtually every campus? That these rat bastards have weaseled their way into these faculty and are brainwashing our kids? Go ahead.
By a very senior person in the administration, and she has said that that was not what she intended to say.
And has she publicly apologized?
I have suggested that.
You have suggested that? Has she done that?
I think she will be finding a way to clarify her position.
What is she going to use? Smoke signals? Is she going to make hand motions? I'm working on it. These anti-Semites and hate America crowd, you know, they're tough to deal with. I'm doing my best. I've told you folks forever, if you hate America, you hate Israel. If you hate Israel, you hate America. You see what I'm saying? These are Marxist Islamists. That's what they are. That's who they are. They hate us. Hate us. We're paying them. They're teaching our children. They're teaching future generations. This whole thing about tenure needs to be addressed. Go ahead.
Here, though, with the lack of enforcement, you see the concern that speaking to these professors is not enough, and it's sending a message across the university that this is tolerated, these anti-Semitic statements from a position of authority in professors in the classroom is tolerated.
But don't worry, here comes AOC. A democratic socialist with a broad background in serving drinks, which is okay, don't get me wrong. I'm not much of a drinker. In fact, I'm not a drinker. Cut 4, go.
Yes or no question for all of the witnesses. Does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Columbia's code of conduct? Mr. Greenwald.
Yes, it does.
Ms. Shipman.
Yes, it does.
Dr. Shafiq.
Yes, it does.
And Professor Shizer.
Yes, it does.
Oh, that's a low bar. By the way, Ms. Shipman is the wife of George Stephanopoulos. You might remember her as a mouthpiece for Obama. Claire Shipman. You notice all these radical Democrats who they always wind up with these big paying jobs. There's Steffi, a big wig over at ABC News, because I don't know, when you're looking for a journalist, that's the guy. And his wife's over there at Columbia, although her answers were actually quite good. Well, as I was saying, Ilhan Omar steps in. Cut 5, go.
One of my colleagues asked you, have you seen anti-Muslim protests on campus?
I have seen, we have had pro-Israeli demonstrations on campus.
No.
But
just
not,
a protest that was against Muslims.
No, I have
you
not
seen one against Arabs?
No, I have not.
Have you seen one against Palestinians?
No, I have not.
Have you seen one against Jewish people? Have you seen a protest saying we are against Jewish people?
No, I have seen.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Ooh, you notice how she kind of cut her off there, Mr. Producer? But first of all, let's revisit, shall we? Have you seen protests against Arabs? No. Against Palestinians? No. Against Muslims? No. What about Islamophobia? Oh, yes, we've seen that. Yes, we've seen it in the Middle East. It's a horrendous thing. When Muslims are slaughtering Muslims. It's very ugly. All right. Circling back. Elise Stefanik, cut 6, go.
And Dr. Shafiq, you realize that at some of these events, the slurs and the chants have been F the Jews, death to Jews, yep. F Israel, no safe place, death to the Zionist state, Jews out. You don't think those are anti-Jewish?
Completely anti-Jewish, completely unacceptable.
So you changed your testimony on that issue as well? So there have been anti-Jewish protests?
I didn't get to finish my sentence. So what I was going to say was there were protests that were called
That's not what you were asked. You were asked, were there any anti-Jewish protests? And you said no.
So the protest was not labeled as an anti-Jewish protest.
I'm not asking what it was labeled.
Anti-Israeli government policy.
The question wasn't what it was labeled.
But anti-Semitic incidents happen, or anti-Semitic things were said. So I just wanted
It is
to
an
finish.
anti-Jewish protest. You agree with that? You changed your testimony?
Congresswoman, anti-Jewish things were said at protests, yes.
Oh, then
Thank
they
you for
must be
changing your
pro-Jewish, Mr. Producer. Oh, jeez. And by the way, what's Omar doing over there? She must be very upset. Go ahead. That's enough. My goodness. One more. Let's slip in one more. Cut 7. Go.
Can you explain why...
This is Jim Banks, who's a great congressman. Go ahead.
Can you explain why the word folks is spelled F-O-L-X throughout this guidebook and in other places at the School of Social Work? What does that mean? Serious question.
Oh,
they don't know how to spell?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not familiar with that spelling.
I'm not. I don't find it a laughing matter.
No, I'm not laughing either. I think it's.
You're denying that this is a official product of the school, but this is handed out to all of you. You are aware that it's handed out to all of your students, and you're not doing anything to stop it.
I kind of like it, Jim. I have to be folks. F-O-L-X. I think we should start doing that, don't you, Mr. Producer? Folks. F-O-L-X. It's kind of cool. Oy. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You want to see a real clown-ass show? Seriously, Mr. Producer pointed me to Mediaite. I'm not encouraging you to go, what a like National Enquirer crap over there. Of course, they hate Fox. They hate Trump. And they love Jake Tapper. They love Joe Scarborough. Two of the stupidest people, not just on TV, crawling on all fours on a pavement. And I'm not interested. I only want to use them when I mock them. I use them as a foil. Hillary Vaughn on Capitol Hill yesterday. Cut 8, go.
Anti-Israel protesters blocking the Brooklyn Bridge were burning the American flag and chanting death to America. Do you support that type of protest?
She's asking Representative Preston.
Do you support burning the American flag and chanting death to America? Does it sound like this is pro-Palestinian or anti-American if they're burning American flags and chanting death to America?
I'm not privy to I haven't seen these reports. I have to check for them myself.
Anti-Israel protesters blocking the Brooklyn Bridge burned the American flag and chanted death to America. Do you condemn this type of rhetoric?
We've got to get her onto her next event here.
Are you okay with people burning the American flag?
If you'd like to follow up with us, so.
Are you okay with people chanting death to America?
Sorry, we've got to head in.
All right, thank you. Let me tell you this, Hillary Vaughn and Peter Doocy, this is quite a powerful couple, Mr. President. You corrected me correctly. Who is Claire Shipman married to? Jay Carney, right? That's true. Who would marry the little shrimp? Good point. I love some person say, well, you want to fund these countries? No, I don't want to fund them. I want to give them arms. Well, then why don't you pay for it? Let me tell you something, pal, out there. I bet I pay 100 times more in taxes than you do, you little jerk. Mark, who are you talking to? I'm not using his name. Not using his name. Don't pull that one on me. It's crazy. All right. It's a pleasure to be back. As I said, I'll continue to be talking about information that I gleaned there in Israel, and it was a remarkable experience. I want to tell you about some of the places we visited, about a long tunnel under the city of David. And what is the city of David? And what is this tunnel? Many of you might be interested. There's stairs, and they go on a long way, down a long path that lead to a pool, Mr. Producer. A cleansing pool. We're followers of one person in particular, as well as others, over the course of, hundreds and hundreds of years would walk, and he walked himself. Jesus. I want to tell you about these places. More tomorrow. Thank God for each and every one of you. And I'll see you tomorrow.